Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, May 5th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego County's path to reopening more local businesses is taking shape, while a startling new whistleblower report says the president put politics and profit ahead of lives. Details on these stories in just a moment, but first, though, 6 more lives were lost locally, and there are 140 new coronavirus cases as testing increases. In Sacramento, Governor Newsom announces a major new effort to trace people who've had contact with COVID-19 patients. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more.
There's never been any disagreement on if San Diego County would reach the point where we can begin to reopen our economy. The issue has always been when and how. The when may still be up in the air, but the how just came into sharp focus. Today, county supervisors voted unanimously to approve the Reopen San Diego Business Safety Framework. It covers employee and customer safety, sanitation, physical distancing, along with general business practice and communications. The board says now is the time for businesses to be ready when Governor Newsom gives the word to move ahead into the next phase of easing stay-at-home orders. But that's where the unanimity ended. A proposal by Supervisor Fletcher to approve hazard pay for some county workers went down with no support. But another proposal to set aside $5 million of money the county got from the Federal CARES Act to help essential workers pay for child care was approved unanimously, contingent on the city of San Diego appropriating $5 million of their CARES Act money.
We're not going back to normal. It's back to a new normal with adaptations and modifications until we get to immunity, until we get to a vaccine.
This Tuesday found Governor Gavin Newsom giving his daily briefing from a small business in Sacramento. The governor talked about moving into the second phase of relaxing stay-at-home orders. He says he'll announce specifics on Thursday. Today, Newsom highlighted an important step in the state's move toward reopening. That is, tracing people who've had contact with COVID-19 patients. A virtual academy will launch tomorrow with the goal of training up 20,000 tracers within 2 months. Then it was back to the beach, Orange County beaches to be exact. On Monday, Newsom said Laguna Beach and San Clemente were approved to reopen.
Just a few hours ago, we were able to make similar commitment in terms of protocols and procedures with Huntington Beach, Dana Point, and Seal Beach. So those are opening back up as well.
No approval yet for Newport Beach to reopen, though Newsom said progress was being made. John Carroll, KPBS News.
President Trump has promised the country will reopen soon to restart the economy, but experts warn relaxing the restrictions too quickly could cost tens of thousands of lives. According to one prediction, the country's coronavirus death toll could nearly double if states reopen too soon.
How many deaths and how much suffering are you willing to accept to get back to what you want to be some form of normality sooner rather than later?
And by this Sunday, at least 42 states will have relaxed some restrictions. A poll from Monmouth University finds nearly 2/3 of Americans are concerned it's happening too fast. A government scientist filed a whistleblower complaint today saying he lost his job after raising concerns about a malaria drug backed by President Trump. Rick Bright was the director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. Bright says he was reassigned to lesser role because he resisted pressure to allow widespread use of hydroxychloroquine. Critics charge the president was putting politics and profit ahead of lives. Bright wants his old job back and a full investigation. Vice President Mike Pence says the White House coronavirus task force is having conversations about when the timing would be right to disband. The task force will reportedly be phased down around Memorial Day, but key medical experts will continue advising President Trump on a daily basis, and the experts will be available to the press. You can now get tested for COVID-19 for free, thanks to more sites opening across the county. Here's KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
The testing is by appointment only. It's completely free and does not require a doctor's referral. Now, it's happening up in Escondido, one in Chula Vista, and a site here in El Cajon at Grossmont Community College. Now, I have to say, I went online to sign up for a test myself, and it's quick and fairly easy.
There's two ways you can sign up for a test. The first is by going online to lhi.care/COVID testing. You can also call 211. On the website, you'll just put in some basic information, answer a few questions, and then choose where you want the test done at.
The process seemed to be fine until I got here.
Many people at the Grossmont site say setting up an appointment was easy, but they did not expect to be waiting outside for 2+ hours.
9 o'clock appointment, 11 o'clock testing. Wow. They had some trouble this morning, so that put them behind. They had trouble with their computers.
When I first saw the line, I was optimistic. I thought, oh, this isn't going to take long at all, but the actual standing in line took about 2 hours.
Once they got to the front of the line, people we talked to say the process was simple and quick.
So I've been in line for a pretty long time. The test took maybe all of 10 seconds.
It's 2 hours in line, and then once you get in and you're done, you should be out in 10 minutes.
The actual test is a swab that goes up your nose.
It was easy. If it took any longer, I might have had a trouble with sneezing or something, but it was okay.
It's uncomfortable, but that's all.
Still, everyone is happy that the testing is being offered, and many are eager to hear their results.
I actually was exposed to someone that tested positive.
So I work in childcare, and everything's on hold until we can get tested.
The state of California is contracting with OptumServe to provide the testing. They're currently open for appointments Monday through Friday, and it's estimated that 800 or so tests can be done per day. When you show up for your test, strict social distancing guidelines are in place, and results are delivered within 72 hours by email or phone.
Keep in mind that anyone can be tested, and you don't have to be an essential worker or showing any signs of the coronavirus to actually sign up for one of these tests. But keep in mind, though, if you're coming out, you might have to wait in line for a long time. Here in El Cajon, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A warning now to landlords looking to sexually harass cash-strapped tenants. Don't do it. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler reports on a crackdown underway.
With many renters struggling to make ends meet during the coronavirus pandemic, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California is warning landlords not to resort to sexual harassment or demanding sexual favors in lieu of rent. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chris Tenorio is the Civil Rights Coordinator at the Southern District. He's tasked with investigations into hate crimes, human trafficking, and housing discrimination. While his office hasn't seen any instances of this type of sexual coercion so far during the pandemic, he wants tenants to know they could reach out to his office for possible violations of the Fair Housing Act.
One of the things that we look at generally when investigating civil rights is an exploitation of a vulnerability. Here, the pandemic is just creating more vulnerabilities for people, whether it's economic or situational. So if someone is unable to pay the rent or unable to get housing, they might be more vulnerable to coercion of some type.
Legal service providers also want tenants to know that despite the pandemic, their rights as tenants against harassment are still in effect.
We have had occasions where landlords use their power, privilege of power, over women particularly, and over particularly women of color, to try to force inappropriate behavior upon them in exchange for getting the apartment, paying for the apartment, all kinds of things.
But, Noel cautioned, this is a very small minority of landlords. Still, he's happy to see the federal government step in on behalf of protecting tenants, especially during a time when so many are vulnerable to unscrupulous landlords. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
Lyft and Uber are facing a lawsuit alleging they've misclassified their drivers as independent contractors. The lawsuit comes from city attorneys across the state, including San Diego. It alleges the rideshare companies are violating Assembly Bill 5, which seeks to ensure gig workers have the right to minimum wage, sick leave, unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation. Local community colleges are bracing for major budget cuts at a time when students need more help than ever. iNewsSource reporter Jennifer Bowman has more.
Community colleges educate close to 200,000 local students. During economic downturns, they serve even more. But as COVID-19 takes its toll, it'll mean less money from the state, its largest source of funding. How bad the cuts will be remains unknown. But some schools already had plans to tighten their budgets before the pandemic. Now they've racked up millions of dollars in extra costs to quickly shift to online classes. San Diego Community College District alone has spent $4 million. With extensions given for people to file their income taxes, it'll have to develop its next budget without final numbers from the state. Here's the district's chancellor, Constance Carroll, at a board meeting last month.
So we will be rolling the budget forward within all of this ambiguity as best we can.
Extra costs related to COVID-19 are expected to continue in the weeks and months ahead. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Jennifer Bowman.
Like other organizations, the USO has had to shift gears. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says they're dealing with sailors in quarantine and with stranded families.
The group known for big events and family gatherings has had to upend its business model to handle the fallout from the coronavirus. No live shows. Their sites on base are closed, says Bob Kirkston, who runs the USO West region, which includes California.
I really thought that we may have to slow down, given all the social distancing, given the fact that we've suspended operations at most of our centers. The exact opposite has been true.
They're providing meals and personal supplies to sailors from the USS Roosevelt, which made an unexpected stop in Guam to quell a serious outbreak of COVID-19.
We delivered over $23,000 worth of medical supplies for the ship's use, primarily masks and gloves and personal protective equipment.
The USO estimates at least 10,000 U.S. troops are isolated or in quarantine around the world, including San Diego. The group is pivoting to serve them.
The human interaction that sustains them is largely gone at this point. Their meals are being dropped off in front of their door.
But they spend their days largely in their room. The USO is providing Wi-Fi, but also trying to be creative, like shipping beanbag sets to let them play one at a time in the hallway.
But the winner gets to keep pushing the game down the hallway and knock on the next door, and someone else comes out, and it gives them something.
The USO is also putting together weekly activity bags for families of troops shut inside base housing. Volunteers have been told to stay at home for now, so Kirkston says the staff is doing most of the work. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
And we are following all of the latest coronavirus developments for you at kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage, and you'll be taken to a page with all of our recent reports. An excessive heat warning is in effect today through Friday for the East County. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Well, the heat continues for a couple of more days. Wednesday and Thursday continued hot, but it does look like some slight cooling will arrive Friday into Saturday, and then a trough approaches for the weekend and next week. So by Sunday into Monday and Tuesday, it does look like a stronger onshore flow, and does look like a more significant cooling will spread inland. But for the immediate future, we're hot, and we do have heat advisories, and we do have excessive heat warnings out in the deserts here and over towards the Coachella Valley. Taking a look at the temperatures, well, tonight we'll be dropping down to the upper 50s in Oceanside. San Diego, 64, and Borrego Springs, 71, and Mount Laguna, right around 55. Mainly clear skies tonight, but right along the coast we could see some patchy areas of low clouds and fog, but the flow's offshore, so many areas staying clear. Looking at Wednesday, it's hot and near record heat out across the desert regions. Temperatures soaring to 108. Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna hits 80. Campos 94. Ramona 93. El Cajon 96. And Oceanside at 81. Taking a look ahead, Well, the heat continues here, especially in the interior sections right into the weekend. Looking at our temperatures, very warm, and then Friday into Saturday and Sunday, not as warm. And looking into the inland areas, it's hot. Next couple of days, low 90s, but Friday, starting to see a little change and getting slightly cooler there over the weekend. Up in the mountains, it's warm, but then it should be pleasant from Friday through Sunday. And in the deserts, well, it's sizzling here the next couple of days, not quite as hot as we take you into the weekend. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
A few months ago, few of us had heard of contact tracing, which means tracking down everyone who might have interacted with someone with COVID-19. But now state and local officials are ramping up contact tracing programs. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser explains why.
Is there anyone else who might have had contact with her?
This was everyone.
Aaron Barnes did.
Barnes, he worked on another floor.
There were documents she needed to sign. He picked her up from the airport.
He picked her up from the airport?
Yes.
This is Kate Winslet playing a doctor with the CDC in the 2011 movie Contagion. Cut to the man, Barnes, on a bus, looking really under the weather.
I really need you to get off that bus. Listen, it's quite possible you've come in contact with an infectious disease and that you're highly contagious. Do you understand?
This is a pretty dramatic version of contact tracing. Kate Winslet literally runs to meet the man as he gets off the bus. But aside from that, it's basically how contact tracing works.
The idea really with contact tracing is that you identify new people who test positive, right? So new positive cases, and then you track down the contacts who may or may not be sick.
A.L. Oren is an epidemiologist at San Diego State and led contact tracing for Seattle's King County until 2012.
At that point, you help both the sick person and those who are exposed to that sick person isolate themselves, right? Basically to make sure the individuals get better, but also to stop further transmission of the virus. If one of those contacts now does test positive, right, and they become what we consider kind of a case, then that same idea would follow, where now you need to figure out who have they been in contact with.
Right now, that wouldn't be too difficult. Under stay-at-home orders, when someone tests positive, you need to get in touch with their immediate family, maybe the checker at the grocery store they visited, and if they went into work, whomever they spent time with there. If one of those contacts tests positive, you need to start the process over again with that person's contacts. Without social distancing, if a person tests positive, you still need to get in touch with their immediate family, but also many more contacts. People who sat near them at a restaurant, were around them at the zoo, worked near them at the office. If one of those contacts tests positive, you start the process over again with their contacts, which again is far more people. Contact tracing has been used for 100 years, all the way back to the Spanish flu in 1918. But there are added challenges with COVID-19, says A.L. Oren, the epidemiologist.
You need about 30 workers per 100,000 people to do this work properly. And that's about double what you would usually need. And of course, most places we don't have what we usually need. Based on just budget cuts.
San Diego County is in the early stages of developing a program and is planning on hiring 450 contact tracers, which is about half of what Oren recommends. There are privacy concerns even in old-fashioned contact tracing. In the movie Contagion, spoiler alert, Kate Winslet tells Matt Damon his wife was cheating on him.
No, I think I have a right to know. Look at where I am here. Look at where I am here.
But some states are taking contact tracing a step further with smartphone apps. The question is whether they'd work and what privacy concerns surround them. We'll talk about those more tomorrow. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom is giving assisted living communities the chance to rent beds out to COVID-19 patients. KPBS's Amita Sharma reports that doctors say this would be dangerous.
The California Department of Social Services says assisted living facilities have, quote, an opportunity to provide additional beds for COVID-19 patients by entering into contracts with the state. Assisted living facilities with 6 or fewer beds will receive $1,000 a day, according to a May 1st notice. Social services officials say any assisted living facility that accepts COVID-19 patients must segregate them from the rest of the residents. Physician Michael Wasserman says he doesn't know of one assisted living facility in the state that is prepared to handle COVID-19 infected people.
Assisted living facilities are not nursing homes. They are not hospitals. They are not medically structured. This virus is absolutely deadly to this vulnerable population. And so one of the things that this edict potentially creates is the ability for a hospital to send someone with COVID into an assisted living facility where they could infect other residents. That sort of approach will get more people killed.
Sally Michael, president and CEO of the California Association of Assisted Living, says the group didn't ask for this opportunity and added, quote, "We believed the state saw this as a possible necessary crisis response." Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
And Newsom's office referred a request for comment to the California Department of Social Services, which did not respond before airtime. And with the governor leaning toward reopening more businesses, some local leaders say his announcement does not go far enough to allow the majority of small business owners to open and make their living. I spoke with Coronado Mayor Richard Bailey about his online call for all small businesses to be deemed as essential as any other business. Mayor Bailey, thank you for being here. You have been so focused on opening small businesses to the public, and you even launched a petition appealing to the county and to the governor to deem small businesses as essential. Can you please explain the importance of this and what kind of feedback that you've gathered?
Absolutely. Well, although the state's definition of essential did not originally include many of the 30 million jobs that have been lost over the past several months and many of the tens of thousands of businesses that have been forced to close over the past couple months, those jobs and those businesses are essential to someone, right? They keep food on the table for people's families, they keep a roof over families' heads. And so I think it's really important that as we move forward, we transition the conversation away from having politicians and government pick which businesses and jobs are and are not essential, and really ask the question, how can these jobs be done in a safe manner for the customer and also in a way that respects the dignity and safety of the workers? So the purpose of this petition is really to say, hey, let's start somewhere. And I think the best place for us to start is by evaluating the current protocols that are in place that allow big box retailers to operate, and see if we can apply similar standards to our small businesses to get them back up and moving sooner rather than later.
And Coronado being a city that attracts people from elsewhere, wouldn't relaxing these restrictions put residents and your local businesses at an increased risk as it draws people from out of town to an area with more lax rules?
That's always a concern. However, given that the state public health officer and county public health officer have deemed it safe for large retailers such as Walmart, Home Depot, and other large businesses such as Amazon to all operate with hundreds of customers and staff members in one confined location, so long as certain health precautions are in place, I think it's important that we recognize that if those health precautions are satisfactory for those businesses, small businesses should be given the opportunity to operate under those precautions as well.
And I'm assuming that you're receiving positive feedback from your businesses and your residents as well?
Very much so, yes, from across the board. Of course, there is some apprehension, and there are some fears, is very similar to the ones you've communicated. But ultimately, we have to do what's right for our community's overall interest. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the original purpose of these shelter-in-place orders was not to stop the spread of the virus, but really to slow the spread of the virus, to prevent our healthcare system from being overwhelmed. And the San Diego County region, we've seen our healthcare capacity right now be at a point where we have approximately 7,000 beds to serve the public, and approximately 355 of those beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients. So our healthcare system, by most objective standards, has not been overwhelmed. And since there is capacity, I think now is the time to start relaxing some of these restrictions in a way that allows those 30 million unemployed Americans to get back to work in a safe and responsible manner.
Mayor Bailey, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And the mayor says the main thrust of this petition is to allow all small businesses to open now. So far, over 1,200 small business owners and employees have signed it.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the threat persists. COVID-19 infection and death rates continue to mount. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An update now on our top story. Today, San Diego County supervisors voted unanimously to approve the reopened San Diego Business Safety Framework. It covers employee and customer safety, sanitation, physical distancing, along with general business practice and communications. Governor Newsom is expected to ease stay-at-home orders later this week. Today is Cinco de Mayo, and you can join the party, or at least virtually. The historic Old Town Community Foundation is bringing Fiesta Old Town celebration to your home. There's live entertainment, music, dancing, and food and drink demonstrations on YouTube or Facebook. You can also order pickup or delivery food and drinks from Old Town restaurants. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.